the carrying capacity of the rail in Auckland from 6 million trips a year to 38 million trips a year for the same amount of money. Every time I tackle them about that, they say, and I say, but you know, and car trips are going down because of the price of oil. Oh, we're going to have electric cars. We're going to have roads for electric cars. They always say, you know, when you ask these questions, as though I was somehow a little bit stupid, but Jeanette, we need roads for buses and we need roads for electric cars. It's like we don't have any roads at the moment. New Zealand is this pristine country with no roads anywhere. We've got to build some for the first time. I can't actually, I don't know where they're coming from, but that's what they say. But the government's own projections are that by 2020, only 5% of our cars are going to be electric vehicles. So we've got a big gap to fill in the meantime. Okay, going on. When we get to energy, electricity prices of course are going up because about 25%, 30% of our electricity comes from gas. And as I said, gas has gone from $2 a gigajoule to $8 a gigajoule, and that's affecting electricity prices. So we need to switch to renewables. New Zealand has the best wind resource in the world. A wind turbine built in New Zealand will produce twice as much power in a year as the same turbine built in Germany, because wind conditions are so much better here. We've got a lot of geothermal power, which we're starting to get into now. There's a big prospect for that. We've got quite good solar resources. We've got some existing hydro. Wave and tidal are coming. Within 10 years they will be contributing to the grid. We've got a lot of wood waste. I'm sorry that some of these pictures don't work. The one on the left was a picture of a home with a cosy home with insulation and double glazing and a wood stove and so forth. The label on the right is energy efficient appliances. It tells you how efficient the appliance is. You know, it was the Greens that introduced legislation that passed in 2000, and only after that law was passed was it possible in New Zealand for the first time to set energy efficiency standards for things like household appliances. The rest of the world have been doing it for years. New Zealand had never been able to do it. I got that legislation through, and in the 7 years since then, the standards that we've set for things like fridges and washing machines and all the other things you use in your home have saved New Zealand consumers $148 million on their power bills. And nobody's even noticed. It's just when you go and buy a fridge, you can't buy the really gas-guzzling ones any longer. So that's an obvious success to do. On the insulation grounds, one of the things we've achieved with the emissions trading scheme is we've got $1 billion from the extra profits the electricity companies will make going back to insulate New Zealand homes and put clean heating devices in. So it's over 15 years, it'll be the end of cold, damp houses that make people sick, and everyone's power bills will be lower as well. Next one. What about food then? Well, the price of rice has gone up by about 50% recently, and I can't see anything much that New Zealand can do about that. We may one day start trying to grow a bit of rice here. We're not as efficient a producer of rice as the countries where it's naturally grown, but we can't do much about the things we import. We could be growing more wheat ourselves for our own bread, but the bakers seem to prefer what comes from Australia at the moment. That may change. But what we can all do is grow some food locally, so that there should be no reason at all for importing fruit and vegetables from other parts of the world. New Zealand grows fruit and vegetables very, very well, and we live in the sort of communities where it's always possible to have a bit of land locally and to do it. Whether it's in the backyard, like the little boy with his carrots, or whether it's the local farmers markets and selling direct to consumers where it's fresh, it's local, it's often organic, and that it's grown in New Zealand. This idea of importing apples from and oranges from California and strawberries in July air freighted from other parts of the world, it is crazy, and it's just not a way to behave in a world with limited resources. That bottom left one was a nice picture. It was actually the same picture of cows on the dairy farm with the stream edges all planted up with flaxes and other natives. That's on the leaflet at the back. You should take a copy of the climate change leaflet, the one with the polar bears on the front, when you go, if you want to see ideas on that. We can't go on growing the number of dairy cows in New Zealand forever. There is actually a limit to what our land will tolerate and to what our water will tolerate. But I've been looking recently into the economics of dairying and finding that low intensity systems, 2 to 2.5 cows per hectare, where you don't pour on the very expensive urea and you don't buy in the very expensive supplementary feeds, you grow some yourself, and you don't have all the animal health problems that the high intensity 5.5 cows to the hectare give you, can be just as profitable for the farmer. Much better for our greenhouse gases, nitrous oxide and methane, because half of all our climate changing gases come from agriculture. Much better for the quality of our rivers and our environment, and less stressful for the cows and for the farmers. So I think we've pushed that high intensity thing to the point where it's no longer actually as profitable. There is quite a bit of research that can be done to reduce agricultural emissions. I won't go into all of that now. We can make farm manure into biogas, a valuable energy source on the farm, instead of letting it run into the rivers to cause river pollution and nitrous oxide. And of course, many of our farms would be a lot better off if there were trees planted on the steeper, less productive land, protecting downstream water quality, catching some carbon from the atmosphere and storing it, generally making the farm more sustainable. Now, that's, as I said, this slide shows a bit of a work in process. It hasn't got a closure slide yet, and there's lots more that could be said about what we can do, but there's a few ideas there to start with, and I'd love to have a discussion with you.
Because we can talk to Jeanette over a couple of things I'd like you to stay. Anyone else urgently got a question?
Didn't you have one at the back?
I was just going to, based on the brilliant graph that you had on the screen when I arrived, which had all the various government departments and their prediction for the cost of fuel putting forward, it occurred to me that there must be a huge amount of jobs available in the government for intelligent people. The other thing is that someone mentioned about the cost of photovoltaic cells, and it occurred to me that you could get all of those government departments to predict what price they would cost.
Actually, that is quite a funny story, and I've been following that story for quite a few years. It was the 2004 budget where we looked at the oil predictions, and they were already way out of date by the time the budget was read in the House, and they got more and more out of date as the year went on. And eventually I said to Michael Cullen, I would like a briefing from the Treasury officials that do these predictions, because I want to find out how they do them. And so these couple of kids, sorry, probably